In today's video, I want to talk about a quilt that isn't really a quilt. Hi, I'm Kim Jamieson-Hirst of Chatterbox Quilts, and today I want to show you how to do pojagi. Now, some people may call it bojagi. It's a form of Korean patchwork, and it's really fun to do and very creative, and there are no raw edges. I know, it's almost like a miracle, right? So let's take a look. I've done a little bit of a sample here, and I'm going to show you how to do this technique and add to this a little bit as well. But you can see here on the front, we've got all these seams here. You can see some top stitching here, and there's no raw edges, right? When we flip it over, we would typically expect to see raw edges, right, when we piece pieces together. But again, no raw edges. But what you see a bit different here is there's two lines of stitching here, right? The front, well, I call it the front, but really, there's kind of no wrong side here. But this side has just one line of stitching, all right? So let's talk about how to create this, how to do those pojagi seams. So I'm going to start with two pieces of fabric, right? That's typically what we start with. So let's take the blue one, we'll put it on the bottom. By the way, I'm using batik fabrics here. They work really well for this technique. Any fabric where you can kind of see through it, because when you put this in front of a window or have a light behind it, it gives a stained glass effect because of the thickness of the seams. So I'm using batiks, they work well. Silk also would work well. Cotton lawn would probably work well as well. Lots of wells in that sentence, right? Okay, so here's my piece of fabric here, and I would have it right side up, okay, if I can tell the right side. Another advantage to using batiks, right? I don't have to worry about that. And I take my top piece of fabric and put them right sides together, okay? And I have this one, the top piece of fabric, down about 1/4 of an inch from my bottom fabric, all right? And my next step is to sew 1/4 of an inch in from my top fabric. In other words, about 1/2 inch in from my bottom fabric, okay? Let's go to the machine, let's do that so you can see exactly what I'm talking about. So I'm lining up the right edge of my foot along that top fabric. So I'm using a 1/4 inch foot here, so I'll get a 1/4 inch seam from the edge of the top fabric. All right, so this is what we have. So we're 1/4 inch in from the top fabric and about 1/2 inch in from the bottom fabric. And now the magic happens. So my next step, now that I've got this seam down, is to take the bottom fabric and fold it over the top fabric, okay? And I want to get it, what I'm trying to do is to meet up with that stitched line, all right? Now, I also need to hold it in place, and I'm going to be pressing it, but I don't think it's going to hold it in place well enough. So you could run a line of glue along there if you wanted. I like to use this Acorn Precision Piecing seam line glue. You can see I've used it lots. And so I'm just going to put a few dots of it along here to hold this in place as I press. Okay, so I'm just pressing this, lots of pressing going on here, folding this over to meet that line. So I can use my seam line as my guide here as I press. All right, so there we go, we've got that down. Now, the next thing I need to do is I need to fold this over, all right? So I'm going to fold this over, and I'm going to give it another press. So this is actually enclosing that seam, so we no longer have any raw edges, right? Okay, now you probably can't see it, but the little seam is in there. It's folded in, and you've got this over top, right? So now we have a finished seam here and a finished seam here. I'm just going to run some easy press, again from Acorn Precision Piecing. Run that over there just to get that seam nice and flat, because there is a bunch of fabric in there, right? So let's get it down nice and flat. It's always a good idea to do your pressing as you go along. Keeps everything nice and flat, makes construction easy. Okay, so here we go, and there we are. So now that I've got the seams like this, I need to keep them in place, right? Because right now, we aren't really in place here permanently, right? We've kind of pressed everything in that and pressed over top of it, but we haven't done anything to enclose that seam permanently. And we need to do that, and the way we do that is by doing another line of stitching just close to the edge here, so like top stitching on the side that shows no stitches right now. Okay, let's go to the machine and I'll show you how to do that. So now I'm just going to stitch close to the edge on this little flap, the side that already has one line of stitching on it. All right, so, ooh, that's close to the edge there, but that's good. Here's a closer look at it so you can see. As long as I made sure I didn't go off, I got that whole little flap there, so now it's nice and secure, right? So that seam is all encased, and now on this side, you'll see one line of stitching on that side. All right, let's go back, and I want to take a look at that sample I have and show you what the next step would be with it. So I showed you how to put the first two pieces together, okay? That's pretty simple, but what if you've already created, a piece like I have here? How do I continue going on? Where do I place my fabric? Is it the same? Is it a bit different? Okay, let's go through that step, shall we? So what I have here is a piece I've made that's got, a few more fabrics added to it, right? And what you can see is that this side, just to go over again, has the one line of stitching and the other side has the two lines of stitching. As we continue on, you want to add your fabric to the side that has one line of stitching, all right? Not the one with two lines of stitching. So we are going to do the same thing. We would put this piece of fabric here about 1/4 inch down from the top, give it a stitch, fold over, press, fold over, press, and then flip it over and do that stitching again. So I am actually going to go to the machine. I'm going to do these steps for you. I'm going to add another round here and show you what that looks like. So I finished adding another round here so you can see what it looks like. I'm going to give you a better view of it in just a few minutes, but I wanted to give you some tips when you're doing this Pojaggy technique. But before I do that, I want to say thank you and give a big shout out to my Patchwork Pals. Those are quilters who are my Patchwork Pals YouTube membership, and their monthly subscription helps to support the Chatterbox Quilts YouTube channel and allows me to continue creating free content for all of you. Now, if you're interested in becoming a Patchwork Pal and supporting my channel, look below any of my videos. You'll see a join button. Just click on that and you'll get all the details. You could even become a Patchwork Pal today. Now let's talk about some tips when you're doing this Pojaggy technique. So first off, when you are putting your fabrics together, I want to point out what not to do. I'm just going to move this out of the way here so you've got a clear look at this. Now I've done this, it's exaggerated obviously, but I want you to understand what I'm doing. So when you put the fabrics together, and you're usually putting this fabric about 1/4 inch down from the edge of the underneath fabric, the bottom fabric, you want to make sure that you err on the side of less rather than more. So for example, you don't want to have more than 1/4 inch here. If you have to, you could have a little bit less. And this is the reason why. If you have more, and again, this is exaggerated, you wouldn't do this, of course. When you go to fold these over, you want to match the raw edge of this underneath fabric with that line of stitching you have done, right? And when you do that, and you've got too much fabric here, what happens is you have a space in here. Again, exaggerated, but the fabric, the bottom fabric, is not coming right against this fabric here like we want it to, okay? You want it nice and flat against that fabric there, that top fabric, okay? When you have too much fabric, that's not going to happen. You're going to have a bubble, okay? You're going to have some extra fabric in there. It's not going to work well. If you tried to make it come over so it's matching up with the edge of the fabric here, okay, what you would end up with is something like this. And then when you go back, you're actually creating an additional layer of fabric. I know it's probably difficult for you to see, but instead of just the two pieces, you're going to have an extra little bit in there. So that doesn't work very well either. So again, when you're putting these fabrics together, take the top fabric, move it up, make sure that no more than 1/4 inch, maybe even just a little bit less of 1/4 inch of fabric shows on the bottom, and that will work much better. Ask me how I know, all right? Now, the other thing that I wanted to talk to you about that helps is, actually I have two more things probably, is that as you do these rounds, sometimes, as you go around, they may not be exactly even, okay? So for example, this top fabric might be sticking out just a little bit, might be a little bit extra fabric sticking out here. So as you do each round, make sure you trim up to keep everything nice and square as you go along. It'll give you a better result. The other thing I wanted to mention is as we do this pressing as we go along, and we're pressing and folding over, you notice that I use my seam-aligned glue here. So it's really important to make sure that that fabric that you were pressing down, to keep it there in place so that when you go to fold over here, that you're not ending up with something like this happening, right? Where some of that fabric is actually sticking up, okay? Sometimes that can happen. You're dealing with just a little narrow sliver of fabric, really, and so it's really important that you keep it down, so you keep everything in so you get this nice finished edge. You don't want to have a raw bit of fabric sticking up. Again, glue stick or seam-aligned glue. If you're not sure about what this product is, don't worry. Check up above or in the description below. You'll always see it on my videos in the description because I use it constantly in my studio. Keeps everything great and nice and flat and keeps everything stuck together. Okay, so it works really well. So those are things that will really help you to get, I should say, a good result when you're doing this Pojaggy stitching. Now, I told you I would show you a better look at it because you want to see that stained glass effect that's created with those seams. So let me show it to you now. So here's what my Pojaggy project looks like now. The quilt that isn't quite a quilt, right? So you might call it a flimsy or a quilt top. But I told you it gives this kind of stained glass look with those flat felt seams. Let's see what it looks like. Oh, gorgeous, right? So you can see I've got a light behind here, so you could pretend that this was a window. And you can see how those seams really pop out and give it that stained glass look. So pretty. So I hope you'll try this Pojaggy technique. It's lots of fun. And if you're wondering about another technique that you could do that is also from another culture, don't worry, I got you covered. Check out this video that has all the information that you need. And for more helpful quilting information, be sure to go to my website at www.chatterboxquilts.com.